They want you distracted by the billion-dollar Disney collapse. They want you mourning the OpenAI killed Sora narrative. They want the public endlessly debating the death of consumer video generation. But that is a massive, highly calculated smokescreen. The truth is bleeding out of the Trident cluster in Abilene, Texas. OpenAI didn't just casually reallocate compute. They executed the Sora sacrifice to feed GPT-6 Spud, the direct, monstrous, and rushed evolution of the Q-star breakthrough. Let us look at the forensic reality of why Sora was assassinated with less than 60 minutes of notice. It was not killed because of market disinterest. It was harvested. Video generation models rely on diffusion transformers, an architecture that requires staggering, unsustainable amounts of VRAM. Sora peaked at 1 million users, generating a pathetic $2.1 million in lifetime revenue, while burning through $1 million every single day in raw compute. OpenAI realized they could not sustain a consumer video toy, while simultaneously trying to build a unified artificial general intelligence. They are projecting a catastrophic $14 billion loss in 2026. They are bleeding cash. They needed the memory. They needed the silicon. But to build this unified agent, they are marching blindly into a $500 billion Stargate mistake. They have triggered a fatal 100,000 GPU compute bottleneck. The media thinks you just plug in 100,000 H100 and GB200 units, and magic happens. They do not understand the physics of data centers. We are hitting absolute physical thermodynamic limits. The thermal wall at Stargate is suffocating the infrastructure. You cannot simply stack that density of silicon without consequence. The copper interconnects face resistance. The liquid cooling systems fail to dissipate the concentrated density of the compute loop. This isn't a technological victory, it is a structural collapse. Welcome to Project Breakpoint. Today, we dissect the architecture of GPT-6 and why it will mathematically break your enterprise infrastructure. The mainstream media is celebrating the leaks. They are blindly hyping up the 2 million token context window. They picture developers seamlessly dropping entire legacy codebases, massive financial ledgers, and thousands of API endpoints into a single prompt. But for enterprise APMs and system architects, this is not a feature. It is the 2 million token context trap. By forcing every enterprise workload, chat, code generation, and web browsing through one monolithic routing engine, OpenAI has created the ultimate inference trap. Let us look at the raw, unforgiving math. In a transformer network, the self-attention mechanism scales quadratically, big O of n squared. When a user submits a prompt, the system must generate a key value cache. The KV cache is the temporary memory footprint required to map the mathematical relationship of every single token to every other token in the sequence. When you push 2 million tokens, you do not just linearly increase processing time. You geometrically explode the VRAM requirements. A single query can consume hundreds of gigabytes of volatile memory. Now multiply that by 10,000 concurrent enterprise users. The GPU clusters physically cannot hold the KV cache in memory. They are forced to offload it to slower system RAM, or even worse, to NVMe storage. This creates massive, invisible shadow latency. Your developers are no longer waiting 2 seconds for a response. They are queued in a silent bottleneck. They are waiting 2 minutes just to receive a 504 timeout. The infrastructure cannot breathe. You are forcing a supercomputer to do the equivalent of reading an entire encyclopedia just to answer a simple database query. To make matters worse, the core model is starving. Language models require pristine, human-generated text to learn logic. But the internet has been completely scraped. Running out of raw human data Spud relies heavily on synthetic feedback to train its advanced reasoning protocols. It evaluates its own outputs. It scores its own logic. This creates a highly toxic closed loop, resulting in brutal data cannibalism. The model is quite literally eating its own digital exhaust. Over time, the probability distributions flatten. The model becomes increasingly confident and entirely incorrect. This is the onset of algorithmic decay, deep logic decay, infecting the enterprise at its root. And the ultimate irony of the 2 million token window, even when the physical hardware survives the heat, even when the shadow latency eventually clears, the monolithic model forgets the logic. You feed it 2 million tokens of your proprietary system architecture, and it cannot remember the specific API key you placed in the exact middle of the prompt. Architects call this the retrieval paradox. You abandon your highly efficient vector databases. You pay the absolute maximum inference tax. You drain your API budget at $2.50 per million tokens, only to guarantee hallucination. It is an economic black hole. If your software relies on routing mission-critical infrastructure through a monolithic GPT-6, building toward absolute structural gridlock, you cannot solve a flawed software architecture by buying more hardware. We are entering the brutal era of silicon obsolescence. And OpenAI is terrified. They are rushing this release because they know the market is shifting. Google I/O is coming on May 19th, threatening to drop Gemini 4. DeepSeek version 4 is running entirely on Huawei Ascend chips, completely bypassing NVIDIA, threatening to deliver frontier-level intelligence at 30 cents per million tokens. The entire economic model of OpenAI is under siege. They even dissolved their super alignment team, quietly removing the word safely from their corporate mission statement. They do not care about stability. They only care about deployment. So, what is the antidote? How do senior engineers protect their systems? Anthropic knows the exact truth. They entirely abandoned the monolith. On April 7th, Anthropic introduced the Claude Mythos preview, a model so lethal, so devastatingly efficient at autonomously discovering 27-year-old zero-day vulnerabilities in OpenBSD that they immediately locked it away from the public, keeping it strictly within a private consortium called Project Glasswing. But look closely at the engineering behind Mythos. Anthropic did not build a bloated, generalized 2 million token trap. They built a micro-model swarm, specialized, defensive, surgical. Instead of routing everything through a single, overheating, massive brain, they utilize intent classifiers. One hyperfast, low-parameter model reads your initial query. It delegates the code generation to a specialized coding node. It delegates the search to a specialized retrieval node. It mirrors the exact microservice architecture that runs the modern scalable web. Anthropic is building precision logic, while OpenAI is building an overheating, unscalable super app. If you are an APM, a lead engineer, or a system architect in 2026, guard your infrastructure. Do not blindly dump your proprietary data into a massive context window just because the marketing team tells you to. Protect your margins. Maintain your retrieval-augmented generation pipelines. Route simple classification tasks to cheap, open-weight models. Save the massive frontier models only for deep, multi-step reasoning. The Stargate data center might have 100,000 GPUs, but it cannot rewrite the laws of computing physics. Do not fall into the inference trap, because when the monolith collapses under its own weight, only the modular systems will survive. This is Project Breakpoint. See you.